And remember these constant values, no? Ebullioscopic constant value 0.52 and cryoscopic value is 1.86. Whether they mentioned or not, whatever it may be, you just remember the ebullioscopic constant value 0.52 and the cryoscopic constant value 1.86. Okay. Now let us move to the fourth colligative property, that is what? Osmotic pressure. Osmotic pressure. Yes, first of all, what is osmosis? Osmosis means we know that diffusion and osmosis. What is the difference? Diffusion is nothing but the spontaneous flow of gases from high pressure region to low pressure region is called what? Diffusion. Same as like gases. The solutions also, coming to the solution, the movement, the spontaneous movement of solvent molecules from low concentration to high concentration, and that is spontaneous through a semi-permeable membrane. That movement we call it as what? Osmosis. So osmosis is nothing but the spontaneous flow of solvent molecules. So which molecules? Solvent. This point is very important. Solvent molecules from low concentration to high concentration through semi-permeable membrane. Through semi-permeable membrane is called what? Osmosis. For example, you just take a resin. Okay. You are keeping it in a water. Okay. If you keep the resins in water, what will happen? Generally, so inside of the resin, very high concentration. Outside of the resin, less concentration. Generally, the movement of water from outside to inside, that is what we call as what? End osmosis. End osmosis. So here, end osmosis takes place. Okay, end osmosis. After the end osmosis, what happens? The size of the resin will increase. Of course, the water, so the resin will bulges, increases the size. So this is what we call as what? End osmosis. Now same resin, after you immediately transfer to NaCl solution. So NaCl solution, the highly concentrated solution. Now this is immediately you transfer this resin to NaCl solution. Now when you compare the concentrations, the concentration of inside the resin is lesser, outside the resin is what? Higher. Okay, now the solvent molecules always move from low concentration to high concentration. Now the solvents will move from inside to outside. That is what we call as what? Exosmosis. Exosmosis. Okay, the solvent molecules are moving from inside to outside, we call it as exosmosis. With this, what happens? The size of this resin again will come into the normal size. Clear? Understood what is osmosis? It's nothing but the spontaneous flow of solvent molecules from low concentration to high concentration through semi-permeable membranes. Okay, and this semi-permeable membrane, few are natural occurring semi-permeable membranes are there, and artificial also we can prepare. A semi-permeable membrane, suppose if you take, what are the examples which are coming from natural sources? You take pig's bladder. Pig's bladder we can use it as a cell membrane. As the layer, egg layer. Okay, egg layer. Or else the membrane present on RBC, red blood cells. Or else cell membrane also we can use. Cell membrane. So these all are natural sources we can use as a semi-permeable membranes. Coming to the artificially we can prepare, that is what? Sodium hexacyanophytate, Cu2 FeCN6. Okay, cupric hexacyanophytate we can use it as what? Semi-permeable membrane. Or else calcium phosphate also, Ca3PO4 epinephrines. So these two by making a membranes thin layer of it, and those layers we can use as what? Semi-permeable membranes. These are natural and these are what? Artificial. Now coming to the osmosis, and now you know osmosis. Now what is osmotic pressure? So to understand this osmotic pressure, what I am doing, I am taking two vessels. And in those two vessels, I am connecting with a tube, and in the center of the tube, I have used a semi-permeable membrane. Okay. Now what happened? One vessel I filled with pure solvent, means water. Just consider, I filled with water as salt water. One vessel filled with salt water and another vessel I filled with water. Okay, so they both are open vessels. So pressure will be what? So this is atmospheric pressure and this is also atmospheric pressure. Now tell me what will happen from where to where the movement of molecules takes place. As in according to osmosis, the solvent molecules are moving from low concentration to high concentration. So when you compare the salt to water and water has low concentration. So definitely the water molecules are moving from right side to left side. Okay, like right side to left side. So like this, what happens after some time, the level of water in this vessel is lesser and the level of solution in the left side vessel will be increases. Okay, so this movement of water molecules takes place. Now what is osmotic pressure? So in addition to this atmospheric pressure, now I am adding some external pressure, P external, on this piston, on the left hand side vessel, to stop the flow of water from right side to left side. So the pressure, the external pressure to stop the flow of water from right side to left side, with what pressure we need, that pressure we call it as what? Osmotic pressure. The pressure required to stop the flow of water from right side to left side, that pressure we call it as what? Osmotic pressure. The pressure required to stop the flow of solvent from RHS to LHS is called osmotic pressure. Osmotic pressure. As the pressure by which, with what pressure the solvent molecules are moving from right side to left side, even that pressure also we call it as osmotic pressure. And one more definition is also there now, according to Thistle funnel experiment. I think in the lower studies you know the Thistle funnel experiment. So if you take the Thistle funnel experiment, so this is an inverted funnel, long tube having funnel, and this mouth of the funnel I tied with what? Semi-permeable membrane, egg layer, whatever it may be, and you kept it in a beaker, okay, and kept it in water. This is what? Water, and this is filled with a solution, NaCl solution. NaCl solution. Now tell me what happened, movement of water from this water to this, what happened, the level of height in this funnel, what happened, what do you think? This is a solution and this is a solvent. Definitely so water have lesser concentration, solution having more concentration. So the movement of water from water to solution after certain time, so this is the initial, after certain time what happened, the level of water will increase, and this level of increase in H, and the density is rho, and the gravitation is G. Rho Hg is called what? Pressure. P is nothing but, this is one more formula, P is equal to what? Rho Gh. We have a formula. Now according to this, how can you define the osmotic pressure? It is nothing but the hydrostatic pressure. Hydrostatic means the pressure existed by the water. Hydrostatic pressure. The hydrostatic pressure on semi-permeable membrane, or hydrostatic pressure on solution to flow the water molecule from water to solution, and that pressure we call it as what? Osmotic pressure. Okay, so this is one more definition. Okay, anyhow, now I hope you are clear about what is osmosis and osmotic pressure. Okay, next let us move to the Van 't Hoff's theory. Van 't Hoff's theory of osmotic pressure. According to Van 't Hoff's, as like how the gases obeying the gas laws, and similarly according to him, the dilute solutions are behaving as like gases. According to him, dilute solutions are behaving as like what? Gases. If they behave as like gases, definitely all gas laws should also applicable for what? Dilute solutions. So he is applying the gas laws. Let us see. So in that the first one, Van 't Hoff first law. Van 't Hoff's first law. Okay, so what is the Van 't Hoff's first law? According to them, the osmotic pressure is directly proportional to concentration. It is directly proportional to concentration and it is inversely proportional to volume. That is the first law. And the second one, Van 't Hoff's second law or Van 't Hoff's Charles law. And this is Van 't Hoff's Boyle's law and this is Van 't Hoff's Charles law. According to this law, pi is directly proportional to temperature. Pi is directly proportional to temperature. So by adding both the cases, finally we are getting pi is proportional to C and T. Okay, here directly proportional, here directly proportional. Pi is proportional to C and T. So pi is equal to C S T. So where S is equal to what? Solution constant. Solution constant. So as like the solution constant value is the same as like R value, gas constant. Both are same in case of gases, R. In case of solutions, solutions constant. Magnitude of S value is the same as like R value. Don't be confused. Now from this what you can write? Pi is equal to C is nothing but what? Concentration. Concentration is nothing but molarity. Molarity is nothing but number of moles present in unit volume. So you can write N by V S NST by and N number of moles. What is the formula for number of moles? Weight by molecular mass. If we substitute that, pi is equal to WST by mv. Pi is equal to WST by mv. So from that molecular mass, if you want, then m is equal to pi. Sorry, not pi. WST by pi v. WST by pi v. As we know, gas constant, ideal gas equation. What is the ideal gas equation? Pi PV is equal to nR. Same as that here also, PV is equal to nRT. So here we can write what? Pi V is equal to, pi V is equal to, else you take this, you bring V to this side. Remaining is what? Pi V is equal to NST. Okay, like this, so many formulas we can. This is one formula, this is second formula, and this is the third formula. Like this we can relate. This is what Van 't Hoff's theory. Now let us discuss the cases. Suppose two solutions you are taking, solution 1 and solution 2, and solution 1 and solution 2, and these two solutions, the osmotic pressure of the solution 1 is pi 1, second one is pi 2. Concentration of the solution 1 is C1, second solution is C2. And the volume is V1, second solution is V2. Then if pi 1 is equal to pi 2, what do you mean by pi 1 and pi 2? Suppose if the two solutions whose osmotic pressures are same, then what we call that pair of solutions? Isotonic solutions. We will discuss this after we finish these relations. Okay, the two solutions, the pair of solutions whose osmotic pressures are same, then what we call them? Isotonic solutions. For isotonic solutions, pi 1 is equal to pi 2. So in case of pi 1 is equal to pi 2, what you can write? Pi is equal to CST, na? So we can write C1 T T1 is equal to C2 T2. Okay, pi 1 is equal to C1 T1, pi 2 is equal to C2 C2. Or else we can write C1 by C2 is equal to T2 by T1. You can use any one of these formulas. So this is the first relation, case 1. Next, second case. Suppose if you are mixing the two solutions of the same substance. For example, if you are mixing the two solutions of the same solute, then what is the total pressure of the mixture? Pressure of the mixture is equal to P1 V1 plus P2 V2 by total volume of the solution. Same as like here. Okay, if you mix these two solutions, what is the resultant osmotic pressure of this mixture? So resultant mixture, pi mixture is equal to pi 1 V1 plus pi 2 V2 by V1 plus V2. This is a formula when you are mixing the two solutions of same solute or same substance. Solutions of same substance. When you mix, this is a formula. Third case, suppose if you are mixing the two solutions of different substances, then what happens? Case 3. Two solutions, solution of two substances if you mix. Two different substances. If they are different, then their I value is different. N values are different. Okay. Concentrations are different. And temperatures are different. Volumes also different. When you mix these two substances, then what is the osmotic pressure of the resultant mixture? Pi is equal to pi 1 plus pi 2. What is the formula for pi 1? Pi 1 is equal to I1 N1 ST1 divided by V1. So if you substitute that, it's the same temperature if you maintain. Same temperatures are same, then what will be happen? See, I1 N1 ST by V1 plus V2 plus I2 N2 ST by V1 plus V2. Now ST by V1 plus V2 is a common, na? So what is remaining? Pi mixture is equal to I1 N1 plus I2 N2 ST by V1 plus V2. So by using this, we can calculate pi mixture of two solutions of different substances. So there are three cases. Remember that from these three, they may ask you the question. Next, based upon the osmotic pressure solutions, isotonic solutions already we discussed. What are isotonic solutions? A pair of solutions whose osmotic pressures are remains same. Then that pair of solutions we call it as what? Isotonic. Isotonic solution. So where pi 1 is equal to pi 2. That is the condition. Next one, hypotonic. Hypotonic solution. So what is a hypotonic solution? Hypo means lesser. The solution whose osmotic pressure is lesser. Okay, so hypotonic solutions are having pi value less. The solution whose osmotic pressure value is lesser, then that solution we call it as what? Hypotonic solution. And hypertonic solution. Hypertonic solution. What is a hypertonic solution? The solution whose osmotic pressure is very, very high, then that solution we call it as what? Hypertonic solution. Okay. Now here in this point we should know 2 points now. Plasmolysis. Plasmolysis. And the second one is hemolysis. Hemolysis. What is a plasmolysis? Plasmolysis is nothing but, for example, you take a cell, blood cell, you take a blood cell. If you keep the blood cell in a hypertonic solution, okay, if you keep the blood cell in hypertonic solution is having high osmotic pressure. So osmotic pressure is higher means their concentration should be very, very high. Okay, so if you keep blood cell in highly concentrated solution, okay, tell me what will happen. This is a higher, outside is a higher concentrated, inside is lesser concentration. With this, the exosmosis or endosmosis? Exosmosis takes place. So cell shrinks. and this is what we call it as plasmolysis. Plasmolysis is nothing but the phenomena of shrinking the cell by keeping a cell within hypertonic solution is called what? Plasmolysis. Hemolysis means reverse. Suppose if we keep the cell in hypotonic solution, hypo means lesser concentrated, that means lesser osmotic pressure there. If we keep a lesser concentrated solution, what happens when you compare the concentrations? The concentration within the cell is more compared to outside. So in this case, which osmosis takes place? End osmosis takes place. With the cell size will increases after certain time. The cell keep on increasing after certain level it will burst. Okay, so and that condition we call it as what? Hemolysis. The bursting the cell by keep the cell within hypotonic solution is called what? Hemolysis. Okay, so these are the hypotonic, hypertonic and isotonic with the examples. We move to the next concept, that is what? Abnormal molar mass and Van Hoff's factor. Abnormal molar mass and Van Hoff factor. So in this Van Hoff's factor we represent with I. So previously I value I1, N1, ST1 understood. So there I is nothing but Van Hoff's factor. Now we are going to discuss that. Now what is abnormal molecular mass? As we know, if you take any colligative property, all four colligative properties are inversely proportional to molar masses. Okay. So all colligative properties are inversely proportional to molar mass. So this is what the determination, the calculation of molecular mass by using the colligative properties. We call it as what? This is what? M calculated or M theoretical. Theoretically, whatever we observed by using the colligative property, that is what we call it as M calculated and M theoretical. But the molecular masses that we experimentally observed by using some equipments, okay, if you calculate the molecular masses of the same substance, okay, that is what we call it as M experimental, also we call it as M observed, also we call it as M actual. M actual. So this is what theoretically experimentally we calculated by using the equipments. Suppose if the M theoretical value means whatever the molecular mass we calculated from colligative property and experimental molecular mass, if both are matching, if there was no problem. But most of the cases what happened that there was a difference between the theoretical molar mass and experimental molecular masses. So that is the difference we call it as, this is what we call it as abnormalities in the molecular masses, simply called abnormal molecular masses. Okay, if you take that solutions, as we know, dilute solutions, concentrated solutions. In case of dilute solutions, we can observe what we can observe colligative properties, whereas concentrated solutions we cannot observe the colligative properties. Already we discussed. Okay, so what is the reason? And one more thing, the solutions based upon the obeying or not obeying the Raoult's law, ideal solutions, non-ideal solutions. Ideal solutions means here the intermolecular interactions are weak or almost less. There was no intermolecular interactions. That is why they are obeying the Raoult's law. Okay, the intermolecular forces of attractions are nil, almost less. Whereas there was some intermolecular force of attractions, because of that either they may contracted or they may expanded. Because of that they are not obeying the Raoult's law. So that is not non-ideal solutions. Now coming to the electrolytes, if you take substances as like the solutions how they are ideal and non-ideal, substances are also two types. What are those? One is non-electrolytes and the second one is electrolytes. Yes, what is the main difference, prime difference between non-electrolyte and electrolyte? So, non-electrolyte means the substances after we dissolve it in the solution, if they won't dissociate or associate, okay, then that substances we call it as what? Non-electrolytes. Okay, non-electrolytes means they neither dissociate nor associate. They remains as it is. Okay, then that substances we call it as non-electrolytes. In case of the solution prepared by these non-electrolytes, okay, number of particles remains the same now. Before the dissolution, whatever the number of particles are there, and after the dissolution also same number of particles are there. If the number of particles are remains the same, then what happens? The colligative properties remains the same. If the colligative properties are remains the same, is there any change in the molecular masses? No changes. So that is why in case of non-electrolytes, theoretical molar mass is equal to experimental molecular masses. There was no difference because the number of particles remains the same, because there was no dissociation, no association. But in case of electrolytes means they may either dissociate or associate. If they dissociate, what happens? The number of particles will increase. If the number of particles increases, what happens? The colligative properties increases. Why? Because colligative properties are directly proportional to the number of particles. So if the number of particles increases, colligative properties increases. If the colligative properties increases, what happens? The molecular mass decreases. Why? Because they both are inversely proportional. So experimental molecular mass in this case is lesser than we expected. Whereas in case of association, number of particles decreases, colligative properties decreases, but molecular mass will increases. So there was a difference between the theoretical molar mass and experimental molecular masses in case of electrolytes. So let us discuss this in detail by using Van Hoff's factor. To explain this difference between the theoretical molar mass and the experimental molecular mass, they introduced a new factor, that is what? Van Hoff's factor. Okay, what is a Van Hoff's factor? Let us discuss. Thereafter, we discuss the use of Van Hoff's factor in this non-electrolytes and electrolytes. Van Hoff factor, represented with I. So Van Hoff's factor is nothing but, suppose you take theoretically, what is the formula for theoretical formula? Pi v is equal to CST. So this is a formula according to osmotic. This is theoretical, high theoretical. Okay, experimentally when we discuss the same, that is pi v is equal to ICST. This is the experimental formula. And what is the difference between these two formulas now? I. So what I am doing, I am dividing the second equation with the first equation. Okay, what we will get? Pi experiment by pi theoretical is equal to what? I. Okay, so what is the meaning of that? I is nothing but, how you define the I? I is nothing but, it is nothing but, it is a ratio between here osmotic pressure, one colligative property. You can take any colligative property, not only osmotic pressure. They have given only one example, simple example. So how you define the I? I is nothing but, it is the ratio between experimental colligative properties, to theoretical colligative property. And that ratio we call it as what? I, Van Hoff's factor. So the difference, a ratio between experimental colligative property to the theoretical colligative property, that ratio we call it as I. Okay, that is why I is equal to pi experimental by pi outside. Since we know that colligative property, any colligative property you take, it is very inverse proportional to molecular mass. No? From this what you can write? I is equal to, one more formula you can write. If it is experimental colligative property, the theoretical colligative property with respect to molecular mass, what we can write? Theoretical molecular mass, theoretical molar mass divided by experimental molar mass. theoretical molar mass divided by experimental molar mass, that we can write as m theoretical divided by m observed. This is one more formula. First formula is experimental colligative property by theoretical colligative property, and the second definition, I is equal to the ratio between the theoretical molar mass to observed molar mass. Theoretical means calculated, observed means experimental. And one more formula also there, I is equal to, okay, I is equal to theoretical molar mass means the mass which we calculated by using colligative property. That is molar mass divided by observed means by doing experiment. That there is a difference, and that is what we called as abnormal molar mass. The ratio between molar mass to the abnormal molar mass also we will get I value. There is one more formula, and by using the number of particles also we can define. It is a ratio between number of particles after dissociation, after, not before, after dissociation or association, whatever it means, after by before, number of particles before dissociation or association. So these are the four formulas. If we use these four formulas, this is one, and this is the second one, this is the third one, and this is the fourth one. By using these four formulas, we can calculate the Van House factor I. Okay, fine. How to determine the I value? Let us see. I value, for our simplification, I am dividing I value for non-electrolytes. Next one, electrolytes. Sometimes they may ask you what is the I value for the H2SO for 90%. So like that questions directly they may ask you the I value also. No? So if you are clear about this, then you feel very easy to this. Okay, non-electrolytes. Already we discussed. Non-electrolytes means they neither dissociate or nor associate. That means alpha value was 0. Degree of dissociation or degree of association was 0. If alpha value was 0, okay, then I value is equal to 1. I value is equal to 1. Remember simply one point now. If the substance is a non-electrolyte, the I value is always be 1, no doubt. If I value is equal to 1, then what is the formula for I value for molecular mass? M theoretical by M molecular mass, M observed. So if I is equal to 1, then M theoretical by M observed is equal to 1. From that what we can write? M theoretical is equal to M observed. Means there was no difference. So for all non-electrolytes, I value 1, their M theoretical value is equal to M observed. Then you may get it out. Which are non-electrolytes? Simple example. All organic substances. Okay. All organic substances like urea, glucose, sucrose, fructose. Okay, so these all organic substances are non-electrolytes. They never dissociate or associate. Now let us move to the electrolytes. Electrolytes means they may either dissociate or associate. So again, these electrolytes I am further dividing into two types, whether they are dissociating or associating based upon the phenomenon. Suppose if they dissociation, and here association. If their dissociation, let us consider their degree of dissociation, DOD means what? Alpha. Degree of dissociation, alpha. And here degree of association is beta, you consider. Here degree of dissociation alpha, degree of association beta. Okay, for that I am using a general formula, just remember. And for one thing, if the substance is undergoing dissociation, I value is always greater than 1. Remember that. If the substance undergoing dissociation, what is I value? Greater than 1. We will discuss why always I value greater than 1 for dissociation. If they undergo association, I value less than 1. So simply by following this, we can easily, based upon I value, we can decide. If I value is equal to 1, non-electrolytes. Greater than 1, dissociated. Less than 1, associated. So now I value 1. If I value greater than 1, then so I is equal to m theoretical by m observed. So if I value greater than 1, definitely m theoretical value is greater than m observed value. Okay, m theoretical value is greater than m observed value. Whereas in case of association, I value less than 1, that means m theoretical value is less than m observed value. Okay, so these are the cases. How and why I value greater than 1 here and I value less than 1 here? And what is I value exactly equal here? So let us see. For that I am taking an example. So example general equation, that is what dissociation. I am taking a substance AN, and AN was dissociated into n moles of A. N moles of A. And at the time T is equal to 0, T is equal to 0, its value is 1 mole and its value was 0. And whose degree of dissociation alpha I already have taken. So at the time T is at equilibrium, remaining is what? 1 minus alpha, and it will be n alpha. N alpha. What is the formula for I fourth formula? Number of particles after dissociation by number of particles before. What is the total number of particles after 1 minus alpha plus n alpha? Okay, no. So 1 minus alpha plus n alpha by what is the before? 1. So that is equal to I is equal to 1 plus n minus 1 into alpha. I is equal to 1 plus n minus 1 into alpha. From the degree of dissociation, alpha is equal to I minus 1 by n minus 1. By using this, you can calculate the degree of dissociation also. Okay, next move to the association. Suppose reverse intake, n moles of A associated and giving AN, and it's at the time T is equal to 1, 0, and here it will be 1 minus beta, and it will be beta by n. So at the time T is equal to 0, 1 0, sorry, n 0, 1 you take, okay, n 0, and at equilibrium it will be, so what it will be, so 1 only you take, no beta. Okay, so it will be 1 minus beta, and this will be beta by n. So what is the total number? I is equal to 1 minus beta plus beta by n divided by 1. So that is equal to I is equal to 1 plus 1 by n minus 1 into beta by 1. So from that, beta is equal to I minus 1 by n minus 1. So by using this, we can calculate degree of dissociation and degree of association. Yes, now again, so this is about the degree of association. For degree of association, one point you should remember, I value is always be less than 1. For dissociation, I value is always be greater than 1. Let us say, in case of dissociation, again, there was two types of electrolytes. They may be strong electrolytes and weak electrolytes. Understood? Strong and weak. What is the difference between strong electrolyte and weak electrolyte? Strong electrolytes means 100% dissociation. So their dissociation was 100%. If dissociation is 100%, then alpha value will be 100 by 100. That is equal to 1. Alpha value exactly 1. Now substitute alpha value 1 in this equation. I is equal to 1 plus n minus 1 into alpha. Na? You remember this formula. This formula is very useful to you. I is equal to 1 plus n minus 1 into alpha. Once we know the alpha value, you can calculate the I value. Okay. Where alpha is equal to degree of dissociation, n is equal to what? Number of ions producing from one molecule. Okay, now alpha is equal to 1. Substitute that. I is equal to 1 plus n minus 1 into alpha value 1. So I is equal to 1 plus n minus 1. 1 cancel. I is equal to n. I is equal to n means I value is always be equal to what? Number of ions produced. For example, in case of HCl, okay, HCl, what is the n value? N value 1. N value 1 or 2? 2. How many ions they are producing? 2 ions, na? Okay, all strong acids all strong bases or the salts which are made up with strong acids and strong bases, all will come under strong electrolytes. Okay, in case of HCl, 2. In case of NaCl, 2. In case of H2SO4, 3. 2H plus and SO4 minus 2. And in case of H3PO4, 4. So like this. Understood? So in case of strong electrolytes, alpha value 1. If alpha value is 1, I value is equal to what? N value. That is why I value always be greater than 1. Next, coming to the weak electrolytes. Weak electrolytes means the electrolytes whose alpha value is not exactly equal to 100% and its dissociation value is between 0 to 1. The degree of dissociation value is in between 0 to 1. Then that substance is we call it as what? Weak electrolyte. Again, alpha value is equal to 0, what we call non-electrolyte. Remember that. It's in between 0 to 1. So let us consider in this case by using this formula we can calculate. So simply you substitute alpha value here, we will get the I value. For example, here I am giving an example. If H2SO4 is 80% dissociated, then what is its I value? That is the question. If H2SO4 is 80% dissociated. Now tell me, you may get a doubt. H2SO4 means a strong electrolyte. In case of strong electrolyte, I value is equal to N. So for H2SO4 3, I value 3. Generally, the people will do the mistake here. But remember that even the substance is a strong electrolyte. Nature is strong electrolyte. If they mention it's a dissociation as like 30%, 60%, 99% also, you should consider this is a weak electrolyte. When we can call it as a strong electrolyte, if it is 100% dissociated or associated, then only we should consider as strong electrolyte. Okay, so it is 80% means it should be weak electrolyte. For in case of that, I is equal to what is the formula? 1 plus n minus 1 into alpha. That is equal to 1 plus. What is the n value in case of H2SO4? 3. So 3 minus 1 into alpha value 80 by 100, 0.8. That is equal to 1 plus 3 minus 1, 2 into 0.8, that is 1 plus 1.6, that is equal to 2.6. Okay, so by using this you can calculate the I value. I hope the Van House factor value is clear to you. Once you calculate the I value, okay, they have modified all the 4 qualitative properties. How they just added the Van House factor in their formula. RLVP is equal to XS. After the addition, so what are the modified qualitative properties? That is RLVP is equal to I into mole fraction of sodium, and delta TB is equal to I into Kb into molarity, and delta TF is equal to I into Kf into molarity, and pi is equal to I into CST. So like this they included Van House factor in the equation so that there was no abnormality in their molar masses. Okay. So this is about the qualitative properties. The main advantage of these qualitative properties are determination of molar masses.